Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. I'm going to give people a couple minutes here to join us if they're going to. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take. Load times can uh, impact that. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I go over it. You'll also notice that there are several links in the show notes, including a link to the support pages at VirtualPBX that cover various guides. And some of them are other YouTube videos that cover features in more depth than I can here. We do record these trainings, so if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. You can come back to this link later and resume where you're watching. That also allows you to share the link with other staff who may need to become system admins. And it's also possible that you may have already watched the previous recorded trainings and may not need to come to this live one. But it's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. You see here our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. This is a page I typically recommend that you bookmark. To get logged in, we need three pieces of information. The first is your username, which is your email address, which should be in all lowercase letters. Right, then your password, which is case sensitive. And then your account name, which is typically your organization name, right? It could be your name if you signed up with just your name. And that's not case sensitive either. Now, if for some reason you can't get logged in, over here on the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, there's a forgot your info link. You can click on that and just fill out this form here, right? We still need the email address, right, that you use to sign up with us. And then we need one of the two following pieces of information. So typically the account name or a phone number that's on the account, and that's a customer-facing phone number. And then you click on Reset Password. That's going to send you an email. In the body of the email, there'll be a link that basically temporarily logs you into your user account page, which basically allows you to change your password, right? And logs you back out, takes you back here. And then you can enter then that new password. It also gives you the opportunity to click on the Remember Me box. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I log in now, it's taking me here to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the dash wizard will pop up and it will take you to your user account page. Now, you can always get to your user account page by clicking on your name up towards the top center of the page. And it's a big, huge pop-up. Right, so most people come here and change the password. Now, as a system admin, I can also click over here on the left under account, right? So I can change like the technical contact, adjust the time zone for the entire account. Admins can also access the add-ons. This is where you can add additional features to your Dash account. Currently, the only add-on you can add is the text forward feature, which allows a phone number to receive text and then send an email, typically. But it's not for two-way communication. There'll be other additional features that come up in the future. Some of them may just be included in part of your plan price. Others may include an increase to your bill. That just depends on the plan that you're already on. Over here on the left, you also have access to the billing portal. All right, this link here takes you to the billing portal. That's where you would access things like your current invoices or updating the credit card. And then system admins can also cancel the account. If you follow the process on this page here for canceling the account, basically the account will be canceled on your next or at the end of your next billing cycle. When you're done on these account pages, just click on the close box towards the top right, and then you'll be back here on the dashboard. So up here at the top, again, click on your name at any time to view that user account page. For most of you, you have a D&D toggle to the right of your name, right? D&D is for do not disturb. Right now, mine is turned on, right? If I click on it again, it will switch the other way and be mostly black. So now I'm receiving calls, right? If I click it back on, now calls that come to my user are going straight to voicemail. The little phone icon here, this opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. It does have a login page, which just uses your dash login information. Now, you do have to have a web phone as a device on your user, so that's something to be aware of before you can actually log into that page. But then you can use Chrome or Firefox on your computer to make and receive calls. Little chat bubble here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to virtualtext.app. It's a website that has its own login information, but this is what you would use to make use of texting. Again, the feature has to be enabled in order for you to be able to log in. Little question mark icon here opens up a chat window so you can speak to our support team so they can walk you through going over a specific feature. The three horizontal line icon here, that's the menu icon, and that takes you to other dash features. Most of our time will be here in the dashboard. And then the little arrow icon to the right is the logout icon. Now, if we go over to the left where it says VirtualPBX, then dashboard, that's the page we're on here. These other tabs are other features of Dash that we'll be getting to as we go through. We're not going to go down in order. We're going to skip around a little bit, at least initially. Here in the center, we've got my total users, right? I have 6 users. So these are people who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you add, the higher your bill is going to be. Total devices, I have 15 devices and then a general breakdown here. First up is Softphone. So this is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it's a VoIP phone. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone as well as any other soft phone apps you may be using. Then we have cell phones. You can add cell phone or landline numbers as contact numbers or devices on your account, which means we can send calls to those phone numbers. Just bear in mind that when you do pick up a call, when we send a call to a cell phone number and you pick up, you're not going to be able to transfer that call to someone else on your account. The web phone, this is that Chrome or Firefox device. All right, it's been separated out from soft phone because it was developed later. And then SIP phone, this is a physical VoIP phone, right? So a piece of hardware, right? It's the phone on someone's desk, connects via an Ethernet cable typically to get to the internet to make and receive calls. Here I have unregistered devices 1, and that means I have disabled one of these devices on my dashboard here. Total phone numbers, I currently have 18. Your plan includes some amount of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Typically, you want to check the pricing page in terms of what's included. I am definitely would be paying an overage here. And I have 2 breakdowns. The first is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers is a number I'm using, right? Someone can dial an assigned number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, send a fax, or join a conference. Right? Spare number, not currently using it, but it counts towards my allotment, right? So like I took a number out of service because a promotion just ended, right? So like in the US, we just had Thanksgiving. So like if I had a Thanksgiving sale, Black Friday sale, that's ended, I could take that number out of service. So I'm not getting calls about something that's no longer running. and then by putting it in as a spare number. The other breakdown here, USDID, US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US local number, right? So if you have a number in San Jose, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Grapevine, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you'd like to get one, you want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They'll let you know if that's possible, and then if there are any additional requirements, which is typically documentation. Conference bridges, I have 3. That means I've enabled conferencing on 3 of my users, meaning 3 people can host or moderate a conference. We're going over here to the top right, where my main number box, where I currently have 4 phone numbers, right? So these 4 phone numbers, they all act in the same way. They're all going to the same area of my system. They're all going to have the same main greeting. I can obviously have multiple main numbers. The conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're going to the same set of conference rooms. This is the number everyone would dial to join the conference, right? That includes your staff. The fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. This also allows you to edit your fax box to allow for outbound faxing, which is via email. The company directory, there's 2 links here. One is CSV, the other is softphone, right? The CSV is just that. It's a CSV file. Use a spreadsheet program. It will show everyone, your users, right? It's give you their names, their extension numbers, their email addresses, and their devices. The softphone is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application, right? So if you're using our softphone app on your Windows or Mac PC, you can download this file and then upload it to your VirtualPBX softphone on your computer. It will show the status of the other VirtualPBX softphones on your account, right? So if that's the only VoIP or only device that you and your staff are using, then you know who's on a call and who's not just by looking at your softphone. Now, if you have people with multiple devices, you're not going to be able to see the status of those other devices, right? So if my colleague Mike is using his Yealink phone, I'm not going to be able to tell that he's on a call on that phone. I can only see what his soft phone is doing. Virtual PBX Store, this opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone. Then we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple things. One is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision a third-party softphone. It's also used to send an outbound fax, right? As I mentioned, it's sending a fax out is via email. So you create an email like you normally do, right? In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, you put the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF, right? Click send. Right, up here at the top, I have where it says, I have virtual VPBX new hire sandbox, and then to the right, I have caller ID. I click on that. It's a big button. This pull down allows me to select any of the main numbers. Unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't always like pull downs. But you can you choose one of your main numbers and you make that your default number for, say, like your VoIP phones to use for outbound calls. Then you have the option here for company caller ID name. This is optional. In the box to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters, count spaces as part of that 15 that you want associated with that phone number. Then we have the company emergency information, or E911. Wants a North American address, right? So just fill out the form. For Canadian customers, in the zip code is where you would put your postal code, and in the state is where you would put your 2-character province abbreviation. Once you click on Save Changes, if you entered information in the company caller ID name, that information gets transmitted to other carriers who support this feature, so that way it gets associated with your number. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their servers. Some caveats about the CNAME, right, the caller ID name field. Not every carrier supports it. So when you make an outbound call, it's possible call routes through a carrier that doesn't support it, which means that information doesn't reach your destination. The destination carrier, right, they have final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. Some of them just pass through the information and everyone's happy. Others, most notably the cell phone carriers, they just send the number through. They don't send the name through. And in fact, they're the ones who might put like spam risk or telemarketer, which you have to register with them uh, to get your numbers to be whitelisted. In some rare cases, carriers can send the number through and then look up their own database that's separate from ours and put that information instead. But that doesn't come up very often. Music on hold. This Dash allows you to upload your own hold music. Right? It will play back a .wav, .wav, or .mp3 file up to 1 MB in size. Right? You would just click upload here, find the file on your computer, and then click the up arrow icon and then save changes. This will be the default hold music for your entire staff on the account. And what that means is call comes in, right? Rings Bob's phone, right? He picks up, starts talking to the customer, and then he presses hold on his VoIP phone, and that's when this file will play, right? So it plays after it's reached a staff member. Now, this hours button is part of main number, but we don't want to set up your main number until you've got users and groups likely in place. So let's go down to users, little person with the desk icon. So here you see my users page. The people with the blue suit icon, those are my system admins, right? The gray person icon is just a standard user, right? So Dante here has very limited access. He's not gonna be able to add users or add devices or anything like that. He can check his voicemail, he can set up call forwarding, and that's basically about it, unless he's assigned to queues, in which case he can join the queues. Up here at the top is where you would click on add user, and you fill out the form here. First name, last name. System just wants some sort of text here. The email address used for login. This is how the system communicates with your staff members, right? Password resets, voicemail notifications. So the email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. You cannot reuse an email for multiple people. Then you have the password box here, right? Enter a password for the user. And main extension number, you can enter in the extension number that you want the user to have. The system will start you off with extension 1000 and then suggest 1001 and up from there. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user, right? So that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user, right? So if you create a user, you add a VoIP phone, it gets registered. They can pick up the VoIP phone, dial *98 and click send. That logs them into their voicemail box. And the first time they do that, the system will walk them through creating their voicemail box PIN number, as well as their voicemail box greeting. And they'll have the option to actually record their name, which is what the system uses for the directory. Speaking of the directory, here's your option to include a user in the directory. You can always change this later. Next, we have to send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those notification emails to go to an email address other than the one that's used for login, you would click on this box here and enter that different email address in this box. This is something you can also change later. And then this last option here, send credentials to the user. I do generally recommend that you put a check mark here. So that way when you click on create user, the user gets sent an email welcoming them to their Dash account with their login information. If you have to add multiple, create user and add another here to the right. Now, once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? So you can change their name if necessary. Here's your option to change their credentials if you click on it, right? So here you can change their email, your in their password. You also have the option to send them the password reset so they can change the email or the password themselves. You can change their voicemail box PIN number, just enter 4 digits and click on Save Changes. Here's your option to be sent to an alternate address. And here's your option to be in the user directory or not. Little person icon here to the far right, to the right. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Little clock icon. This allows you to change the time zone for the user so that their voicemail timestamps are correct. Little flag icon here. This allows you to change the display language of the web pages for this user. You can change it to English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds, which is enough time for sending calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. In this case, it's grayed out because we have the follow me feature enabled, which is overriding that. To the right, we have the extension box. You can have multiple extension numbers for a user. You have a phone number box, so you can assign a phone number directly to a user, right? So it rings only this person. You have your option here for by numbers, which is adding a new number to the account, or add from spare, which would be reusing a number, right? Or using a number you're not currently using. This gives you a list of numbers. You click on the box in front of it, you click on add selected, and then you would click on save changes to make that change permanent. Right now I can unassign it if I don't want to use it later. One thing to know is when you have a phone number assigned directly to a user, right? This phone number does not have hours of operation or holidays, right? Meaning it's open 24/7. Now, for buying numbers, you have two options. You have local and toll-free. All right, so toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click on search, and the system will give you a list of numbers. Right, you can scroll down, you click add next to the number you want. Now, when you click on add, you haven't done anything. Right, you haven't reserved the number, anything like that. So if you walk away and come back, it's possible someone else takes this number while you were away, right? They finish the process, right? But if you click buy numbers, right, that's when you're actually adding the number to your account and reserving it. Right, and again, you would click on save changes. Local, you need to know the area code you want a phone number in, and you would just do a search. For any area code, and this includes the toll-free prefixes, you can get this message, which basically is saying that there's no readily available phone numbers in this area code. So you would want to use your favorite search engine and do a search for, in this case, area code 310 overlay. Go back to search and change your search from 310 to 424, which is the overlay for that area code, right? Overlay area codes are just multiple area codes that cover the same geographic area, pretty common in most major cities. And in case like 310 is in Los Angeles, right? So there's not only is there an overlay, but there's also several nearby area codes that also may work for you. But beyond that, same process, right? You click add next to the number you want. You can add multiple if you want. You would then click on by numbers to make sure you're securing the number for yourself. And then click on save changes to add the number to the location. You also notice that there's a little gear icon here next to these numbers. Oops. Right, so you have an option here to configure the caller ID, right? So you can turn on, have CNAM associated with these individual numbers and turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, right? So it shows up on your staff members' phones. Next up, E911. Each phone number can have its own E911 address associated with it. This is done so that way you can then assign that phone number to specific VoIP phones specifically for 911 purposes only, right? So that way, pick a particular VoIP phone, dial 911, the correct address is transmitted to emergency services versus the corporate headquarters. And then prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, gives them an idea of what the call might be about. Like you can type in the word, oops. So if I go here, right, so I have the word direct here, so that way when a call comes in on this phone number and it rings to my phones, I see direct and then the person's phone number who's calling. So I know, oh, they called me directly versus coming in through the system. Okay, next up on device on users is a device box where you can add new devices. The first is a SIP phone, right? That's that piece of hardware. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of phones, some of them have like a dozen. Right? So find the make and model of the phone you want to work with, give it a name, and then enter the MAC address. This is typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in under as like a status settings or basic settings, you should be able to find that here, enter it here, and then click on create device, and then click on save changes. All right, you'll want to come back here, click on the device again, and over here on the right, click on advanced, and go down to miscellaneous. And where it says allow reprovision, you want to click unlock. Get a little green message here. Click on save changes here, and again, save changes one more time. So now we just told the system that this phone is going to be ready. We're getting ready to provision this phone. You need to log into that phone's web user interface and enter a URL. Basically tell it to go, hey, go to this location, get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go down in the show notes and look at the auto provisioning phones document. That's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, settings to double check. But basically what should happen is you put in that URL, tell the phone to auto provision. It should reboot a couple times and then be working, right? Come up as registered and show up as green in the dashboard here. Okay, next is cell phone or landline. Same basic process, right? You give it a name, and then here in the number field, you put +1 area code and number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Any place you add a phone number in the system, it's going to be that same way, +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Click on create device, and then click on save changes. And if I click here on this device, it will show you the proper format here. Let's go to the advanced options. So these, typically speaking, the default is these bottom two are checked. The first one is left unchecked. So in terms of how the system handles it, right? Calls come in, go to my user, they ring my cell phone, right? My cell phone rings, I pick up, and I'll hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. So when I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm there, and yes, I want to take the call, and then connects the inbound call to me. Right? We begin speaking, everything's fine. Now, what could also happen is you could choose to like contract out with an automated answering service, right? So they give you a phone number, say, hey, just send calls to this phone number, we'll handle your calls. Well, on your Dash account, you would come here, add that number as a device, probably on a user, but you could just add it as a device on its own. But what you would want to do for an automated answering service is where it says allow use of cell phone to voicemail, you want to put a check mark here and then click on save changes and save changes here. All right, so what that does is now when we send a call to that phone number, when we hear that pickup tone for the automated answering service, right, we connect the call, right? So that way the automated answering service can handle it, right? Because generally speaking, the automated answering service isn't going to know to press 1 or to send that tone across. Now, if you have that setting on your actual cell phone, what can happen is your cell phone voicemail can pick up, right? Which means that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Now, some people want that, some people don't. The other thing I wanted to cover is under advanced options is this keep original caller ID. Now, by default, this is checked, which means when customer Mary calls into the system, it reaches my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. If I don't recognize it or I'm only answer calls for phone numbers I recognize, right? That means I may miss an opportunity, right? If I uncheck this, what happens instead is when customer Mary calls, instead of her phone number showing up on my cell phone, I see my main company number. We go back to the dashboard here, right? So whatever number I selected up here, that's the phone number that shows up on my cell phone. So that way, visually, it's like, oh, this is a work call. Let me answer it. All right, next up is soft phone. Whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to the account, you're going to get this warning message. Please read it at least once. And then here, the system will default to opening or creating a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's soft phone application. That's fine if you want to do that. You give it a name. In the SIP username, you want to copy and paste this. This is one of the three pieces of information you're going to need. In the SIP password box, click on the SIP password box to review the password, so that way you can copy and paste it. Please don't change it. And then here's the account realm. So those three pieces of information, right? The SIP username, the SIP password, and the realm. Those are the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, you don't need to do all of that. But down here, below where it says View Configuration Guide, it's a toggle. It says Use Third-Party Application that you can click on. So now it shortens that box, right? Now it says Use VirtualPBX Application. You just need to give it a name. You would click on Create Device and then Save Changes. When you click on Save Changes, in that instance, all right, Dante here would get an email saying that his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. And it's going to have the login information for his soft phone app, as well as download links. This is the only way you can add a VirtualPBX soft phone to the account, is directly to a user, right? You can't do it on the Devices tab. The web phone, I also find it easier to do it directly to a user, right? You just give it a name, click on Create Device, and save changes. Since the web phone uses your dash login information, it does need to be associated with a user before it's usable. That's why it's just easier to do it directly to a user. All right, user features. First up is caller ID number. This is for users that you've assigned a phone number to directly, and this allows you to have that user, when they make an outbound call from the VoIP phone, display their own number as the outbound caller ID instead of the default number that you set up on the dashboard. So up here is where you would click to enable. You would select their phone number up here and then click on Save Changes. So that way, whenever make an outbound call from the VoIP phone, their own phone number shows up versus the company number. Right, so something like your sales staff would probably prefer, so that way when they make outbound calls and people call back, they go back to the salesperson who originally called them. Voicemail box typically will be enabled on all users, and this is the default settings. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, you have 3 ways that you can listen to messages, but only 2 ways to manage them. The first way to listen is via email. And by default, right, the system is attaching voicemails to the message. So you get an email notification saying, hey, you have a new voicemail. Okay? In the body of the email will have the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the voicemail box, and an MP3 attachment, which you can then listen to. Now, the 2 ways to manage your voicemail boxes, right? You can call into your system, right? So from a VoIP phone on your user, you can just pick it up, dial *98. That logs you directly into your voicemail box. And when you're listening to messages over the phone, you have the option to delete them or save them, etc. Right? From like a cell phone or a landline, if you call it into your main number, when the main reading plays, you can hit *97. That tells the system someone's trying to log in to check voicemail. It'll ask you for your voicemail box number and then your PIN number. And then the other way is via your user portal, which is under here in the menu. It defaults you here to your voicemail tab, so you can listen to messages, you can download them. In the box here, you can change their status. All right, follow me. This is a feature for users with multiple devices where you as an admin would set up how those devices will ring. You would click to enable here. And then on the right, you have to decide which of the devices you're going to make use of. Right, under do not ring, it defaults to everything is do not ring. You uncheck what you want to use. You have a little green bar here that you can click and drag to adjust the ring time. This box up here along top, these are timestamps, so you can adjust the total ring time. It defaults to 120 seconds. You can change it to what you want it to be. You can click this distribute button, excuse me, so that way it equalizes time out between these two devices. Right? You can click and drag and then click distribute again, and now I change the order. Right? If at a later time I'm told that the cell phone needs to be a part of the mix, I can uncheck it and then click distribute. So now it's part of that mix. One thing to keep in mind is calls from a group that are offered to the user, right? So the user becomes part of a member of a group, which we'll be talking about next. Calls from the group ignore the follow me setting, right? So in this case, if David here is part of a group, all three of his devices ring, no matter what I set here up here for the follow me settings. The fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box. Once you click enable, you have the option here to select a spare number, buy a new number, or add a new extension number. I recommend making use of a phone number, as that gives the user the maximum versatility. If you select an extension, right, you limit the user in terms of with an extension number on their fax box, they're not going to be able to ever send a fax out because the system will try to use that extension number as their outbound caller ID, which will fail. And potentially, you limit who can send them a fax. Right? Some electronic fax services may not allow for an extension. They just want you to put in a phone number and click send. So that's why I would say better off using a phone number. But again, this is only if you want a user to have their own fax box, separate from the main fax box. Conference bridge. You can choose to have users make use of conferencing, right? So when you enable it, that means they're being a host or moderator. And then you would need to set up a PIN number for them. This is a number they can change under the user portal. There's a conference tab there. The enable video conferencing, that's for in-house use, right? So everyone within the Dash account could join the conference and make use of video, but anyone from outside would not. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your users can turn call forwarding off or on their own. They can do that in the user portal or directly from their VoIP phones using feature codes. As an admin, you would set up failover mode, and this is mostly for use for VoIP phone users. Right? Because basically what you're doing is saying is if that VoIP phone goes offline for any reason, right, it becomes unregistered, and a call comes in at a time with failover mode enabled, you're saying, if that happens, send the call to this phone number I specified automatically. All right, +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes. Now, if your staff member already has their, like say, their personal cell phone as part of their normal device mix, right, and it's always on or always available, then you don't need to make use of call forwarding at all, right? So like, which I probably should have mentioned here under follow me, if I leave follow me disabled, right, and this user has multiple devices, all three of those devices ring whenever a call is offered to him. So then in that case, I would not need to make use of call forwarding for this user because one of those devices is a cell phone. Customize call recording. So on your Dash account, you can choose to record calls, right? You would just click enable here. It starts off looking like this, where you have to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record, right? Inbound internal is covert call, right? So like Dante called David. Inbound external, customer Mary called David, right? Outbound internal, David called Dante. Whereas outbound external is David called customer Mary. So we sometimes see this, right? Just the external ones or all four. Your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. Please check the pricing page to verify what you have if you just signed up with us. Uh, if you're recording every call and you have heavy call volume, or I believe for insurance agents, uh, where they might be required to store your call recordings for up to 10 years, you'd want to talk to our account services team about making sure that your account is enabled with AWS integration, and then you can add or sign up for an AWS account with Amazon Web Services, so that way you can store your recordings with them, right? And that's the better solution for that 10-year storage requirement and or heavy call volume. It's going to be more cost effective. Music on hold. You can choose to have your staff members have their own on-hold music. Right? You'd click to enable, upload a .wav or .mp3 file up to 1 megabyte. You would do this, for instance, like if your salespeople, you would have hold music that talks about, special promotions that are being run, versus like your tech support staff, who you might just say, hey, go to our website to view, our FAQs. Do not disturb, right? Currently this is enabled. That means calls aren't ringing devices, right? So like someone had to leave the office for a family emergency, you can come in as an admin, go there to the user and click on do not disturb. So that way calls would just go straight to voicemail. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. This is designed for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. This allows you as an admin to create a hot desk ID for a user, right? Typically, if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make it their extension number and then click on Save Changes. So I come into the office on Tuesday, I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone there, I enter *11, click Send. The system will ask me for my hot desk ID. I enter that. It will then tell me that calls will now be sent to this device, right? So for the rest of my workday, any call that's coming to my user ends up ringing at the phone I'm sitting at. End of my workday, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, and I go home. Right? Next time I come into the office, let's say that's Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 2, I just sit down at desk number 3. Same thing, right? Pick up the phone, *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at that desk. All right, next up, we have groups, referred to as hunt groups or ring groups, right? Departments, right? Group of people answering calls about a similar topic. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name and then an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group right over here to the right. And then you click on Save Changes, or sorry, click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. Right? You can always change the name to anything else you want it to be. You have the group call attempts, which is how many times the system will offer an inbound call to the members of the group. So right now, this is set to 2. There's little arrows here to the right, so I can increase that, or I can decrease it down to 1. Right. Here's my option here to delete the group if I no longer need it. Otherwise, I click on Save Changes. To the right, I have the members box, which shows my staff members who I've assigned to the group and how I'm offering calls to them. So this particular setup is referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? So I'm ringing everybody at the same time, and whoever picks up first gets the call. Now, what can happen is Taylor and Dante can pick up the call at the same time, right? The system has to decide who gets the call. So say Dante gets it, so Taylor's sitting there going, hello, hello, right? He has dead air. In an office environment, Taylor could probably hear Dante on the call and go, oh, okay, Dante grabbed it. In a remote working situation, that may not be so easy unless you're using something like Slack or other way to communicate that someone did actually get the call versus there being a problem with someone's VoIP phone, for instance. Now, up here at the top, these are timestamps, right? This little box, you can adjust the total time. The default is 2 minutes, right? So you can update that up or down however you see fit. I can click distribute, right? So now I equalize how the call is offered among my staff. Now, the system here for calls to a group, it doesn't ever skip a person, right? So a call comes in and David answers, right? So he's helping that first caller. A second call comes into the group, it's still going to be offered to David. It's not going to skip him, right? Until 40 seconds, and then it goes to Taylor, right? So now there's 2 calls, right? You have 2 staff members helping people. That's great. Third call comes in. That third call has to potentially wait for 80 seconds before it gets offered to Dante. Now, these are sliders, so I can adjust it so there's less hold time, right? If it's particularly busy down here at the bottom left, I can click add, so I can add additional staff members. And then add the ring time. Again, you want it, if anyone's answering with just a cell phone, you want it at least like 30 seconds or so. Otherwise, 20 seconds is typically fine. I can always click distribute to equalize it out again. If I want to, I can click and drag so I can change the order, right? And then click distribute again. So now Taylor's first all the time and David's at the end. And then click save changes as necessary. Right, groups can have extensions. They can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. Basically used for staff to transfer calls. Just like users, groups can have their own phone numbers, right? You add from spare or by new. Got the little gear icon here as well. Again, this phone number is available 24/7. And then group features. First up is ring back. So call comes into a group offered to your staff members. When your staff members' phones start to ring, that ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller, right? That's the ring back. If you don't want that ringing sound to come through, up here, you would click to enable, and you would upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono up to 1 megabyte. Now, you want to make sure that this file plays as long as your hold time in the group, right? The system's not going to loop it for you, right? So if the default is 2 minutes, then you want to make sure that this file plays for at least 2 minutes. Right? So you would just click up arrow icon to find the file and then save changes. Next action appears where you click to enable. This is where you tell the system what to do if no one is able to pick up the call. Right? So you click enable, and then down here, pull down. So you can send it to a voicemail box. You can send it to a different group. You can send it to a particular user or particular device, are the typically most common ones selected. And then save changes. Allow call forward. You can click to enable, and that means your staff members can make use of call forwarding, right? Which makes sense if you're only using VoIP phones. They can then forward to like their cell phones if they're going to be working remotely, right? Or going to a customer site, for instance. Caller ID prepend appears where you click to enable. This allows you to put either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. I recommend making use of one or the other, not both, but basically gives you a way for your staff to know what kind of call they're dealing with. All right, so once you have groups and users created, then over here on the left, you want to click on main number. Up here at the top, your main company numbers. So you can see them here. You can have the little gear icon. You can either add from spare or by new, right? If you want to add more numbers, right? Or unassign a number if you no longer want it as a main number. Then you have office hour strategy, 24-hour open office, right? Means you're open 24/7, right? Whereas custom office hours, you choose the days of the week that you're open. Just put a check mark in front of the day of the week that you want to be open, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes here to the right. You also have the option to say, hey, we're closed for lunch every day at the same time. Right? You just put a check mark here, and then set your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time. And then click on Save Changes. Office holidays, put a check mark if you're closed for holidays. And then over here on the right, where it says Add Holiday, you have your option here for single day, date, range, or advanced. Right? Clicking on any one of these will create a new row. So here, for instance, the single day for Christmas Day, I gave it a name, choose the month, choose the date, save changes. Right, date range, like I have up here for holiday. Right, I gave it a name, a start date, and end date, save changes. And then advanced is what I used here for Memorial Day, where I gave it a name. I choose the month. This second pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week. And then save changes. If you want to remove a holiday, you just click on the little trash can icon here, and then save changes. All right, next up, we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, right, those four phone numbers I have up here at the top, how do I want my system to handle my calls during my open hours, during my after hours, or during my holidays? So in this case, right, open hours, I have calls going to my virtual receptionist or auto attendant. I click on the virtual receptionist because it's the link. Here on the left is my main menu, right? So these are what people press on their phones to navigate through the phone system. Right here, what says add route is where I can create additional rows. You can have 0 through 9, the star key, as well as the default action. Right, and you click X next to the 1 if you want to remove it. Then over here on the right, we have your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech, where you can type in this box here up to 250 characters, not words, of what you want the system to say, right? It reads it back in a computerized or robotic voice. This is good for like initial testing if you've never used a PBX system before or just not sure how you want things to go right off the bat. These are free. The downside is that the system names the file for you, right? So we're in our open hours. So the system would name this text-to-speech file as my main open hours menu TTS. Right? If I come back and change it just to like add a word, right? Then I'll have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation is if you make use of text-to-speech, after you create one, on the left there's a greetings tab. Find that main open hours menu file and change the name, right? Just make it something you can recognize in case you need to flip back and forth. You can upload your own file, right? .wave.mp3 up to 1 megabyte. Click choose file and then update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. This will be a pull down showing all your media files, right? So main greetings, voicemail greetings, ringback files, they'll all be here, which is why you want names you can quickly and easily recognize. You can record it over the phone. Now, when it says pick up a phone, register to the account, that means a VoIP phone, right? But then you would dial your main number, and then you would enter this PIN number. At that point, the system will switch over to walking you through recording over the phone. Now, let's say you don't have a VoIP phone available, right? Or you have a friend who's got that great phone voice. What you can do is under settings, where it says allow outside recording, turn that on. So then your friend can call in from their cell phone, for example, right? They still need that PIN number, but then they can record over the phone. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you have a media file or a greeting file in place as your main greeting, and you call in over the phone and change it over the phone, you're overwriting the existing content, right? The file name will stay the same, but it will have that new content. Now, because we have a greetings tab, you can download your normal main greeting and re-upload it if necessary, right? So that way, come holiday time, sometimes people get in a rush. So you don't want to lose your normal main greeting. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, separate company. You can order a professionally done greeting from them. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly and email you the file. So then you would just come up here to upload your own file and have it ready to go. Right. So settings. First up is number of tries on misdial. This is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. Right. They get one built-in attempt. So anything you add here is on top of that. Right. So right now my inbound callers have 3 total attempts. Right. Because I give them 2 retries on top of the initial one they get. The dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So person calls in and they press 7. The system will wait, in this case, 5 seconds before it assumes they're done. It says, oh, they just meant 7, right? Versus like 772. Now, 7 is not a menu option here, and it's not an extension number, right? So now that retry would kick in, right? So then the greeting would play again. They press 7 2 more times, like, they go through the process 2 more times. On that final attempt, the system will say, we did not recognize your entry. If there's a default action in place, like I have right here, then the system will transfer the call to that default action. If I remove that, if there's no defaulted action in place, the system will say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, and end the call. The reason you would not want a default action would be to avoid or limit robodialers from using up minutes on your account. Now, allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. This just means if someone enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. Right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound callers can only press these menu options. Anything else is invalid entry. And then the last thing here is suppress the playing of invalid entry. If you don't want the system to play that message of we did not recognize your entry, right, you would just turn that on and that message will stop playing. So any changes you make to your menu, your greetings, or the settings, you want to click Save here, right? You're taken back to the incoming call handling. You want to click Save Changes here, right? You're clicking Save twice. Now, what I've set up here for the afternoon or after hours, right, is what's referred to as a live operator answer option, right? So what I'm doing is I'm offering calls to my support group. If they're not able to answer the call, then that caller goes to the virtual receptionist I have set up for after hours. Now, this is a pull down, so I can choose things that are already on the account, right? Other users, groups, devices, etc. And then I click on the virtual receptionist, right? This is my after hours, so I have a different greeting in place. I have different menu options. But beyond that, everything else will be the same. Last option here, I'm using the third incoming call handling option. In this case, I'm sending callers straight to voicemail. Now, this first pull down, I could instead, offer calls to a specific user, right? So like I have a person covering calls for holidays, right? We're not expecting much, so it's probably just one person. So I can select Dante, right? Now, if Dante isn't able to pick up, it goes to the main voicemail box, right? The same would apply if I offer it to my admin group, right? But because it's a holiday, I instead opted to this last option here, which is, hey, just send them straight to voicemail. Again, save changes. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, right? Goes to the same set of conference rooms. You also have the option here to edit the custom greeting. Click enable. It's a text-to-speech greeting, however. Right, so if I left this disabled, when I call my main conference number, the system will still process me, says welcome to the conference, and then prompts me to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number, which is why I can't add any more. But once you do, you have a fax box that you can edit. Inbound fax notification, designed to put an email address here. This email gets sent an email every time a fax comes through, right? And the body of the email will be the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials your fax box number, like say from their cell phone, right here, fax tones and hangs up, this person still gets an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt. It will have the date, the time, and the phone numbers involved. Sometimes in the caller ID, it will say wireless number, in which case you know right off the bat, this was a misdial. Don't have to worry about it. But beyond that, you'd want to reach out to the person faxing you to find out, or let them know, hey, it didn't get through. The email permissions, this is designed to put your company's email domain here. This allows for outbound faxing, right? If you leave it blank, then no one on your account will be able to send a fax out. But once you put your company's email domain here, for example, anyone who has an email that ends in your company domain, so like in this case, anyone at VirtualPBX, they can send a fax out on this system without having to be a user on the account. Right? They just need to know that +1 area code number and then the account realm, right? And then attach a PDF. Right. Auto attendance is a plan-specific feature. This lets you create additional auto attendance. And you would do that for submenuing, right? So one for English, two for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish auto attendant. This is also used for people who have multiple businesses, right? They want each of these businesses to have their own phone numbers and own greetings, but they have the same staff people answering calls among these people, among these multiple businesses. Up here at the top is where you would click add on attendant or add new attendant. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on create attendant, right? The extension number is not something your customers would ever use, but your staff could use to transfer calls. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. It defaults to saying unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? Separate company, right? But this is a toggle, right? So you can click on it. So now saying it's available in main menu. So now it's a menu option, right? So I could go back to my virtual receptionist and put menu option 5 to go to this auto attendant, right? Or it can even be a next action option from a green group. Right. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? So you can buy from new or add from spare. You got the little gear icon here as well for the caller ID, E911, and prepend. The extension box, auto attendants can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. And then we have the little wrench setting under settings. Right, you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This will match what we set up under the main number. And then but the only routing option you have is for the virtual receptionist, right? So you would set up menu options, a greeting, etc. Hit save, and then save changes. The devices tab shows the devices on the account. Green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it, right? Red, unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. If you have a black device, that means you've turned it off over here under the enable column. You can add devices here, but you're not able to assign them here, which is why you can't add the VirtualPBX soft phone here, because it needs that user email to be associated with. Beyond that, you can click on the little wrench icon here under edit. For physical VoIP phones, under selected, the codecs should be G711U or G711A. And then you would click on Save Changes. Emergency caller ID, right? This is where you would select the phone number and then the address that's associated with that phone number for this specific device, right? So anyone picks up this phone, dials 911, this is the address that gets transmitted to emergency services, right? So you can do that on a per phone basis. You can also set up the external caller ID for a specific phone, right? So it always shows up this outbound caller ID. Excuse me. The greetings tab, this shows your media files on the account. Up here at the top is where you would add new ones, right? You give it a name, find the file on your device. Oops. And then click on create greeting. It will upload it here. It doesn't assign it anywhere, right? You still have to choose where you're going to put it. Beyond that, you see the name of the file. Source, TTS, is text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have a play icon here so you can listen to the file to see if it's still relevant. If it doesn't play back, or if you just want to have a backup copy, you can download the file so you have a copy on your computer. And then you have the edit option here, little wrench. This allows you to change the name or just remove a file that's no longer needed. Numbers tab shows the numbers on your account. So numbers in use just shows you that where they're assigned. You got the gear icon here for any of these numbers. You can adjust that information. The spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not currently using. If you want to get rid of a number, this is where they need to be first, right? So you have to unassign it first, but then you click on the box in front of the number. And then you have the option up here to click on delete. And now I have 3 less phone numbers on my account. You can still buy numbers here and add new spare numbers. Port is how you would move a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So if you're trying to move a phone number from Comcast to us, you would click here, right? Give it a name, choose local or toll free. And then you need to upload a PDF copy of your current bill from the current carrier, right? So from Comcast. Affirm that it's within 30 days, click next. There's a form to fill out after that, which basically wants to match the information that your current carrier has on file for you, right? In terms of company name, address. It will ask you for the BTN, right? The billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, the number you're porting is also your BTN. Otherwise, you would need to talk to your current carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out, right? We normally see this with mobile carriers, some VoIP carriers, as well as some Canadian carriers. Some of them are convenient and have it on your invoice. Others, you have to call and get the PIN number from them directly. Then there'll be the opportunity for you to download a blank LOA, letter of agency, which you would need to fill out and sign. And that, again, should match the information that your current carrier has on file for you. You would then upload the completed and signed version and then submit the documents. Once you do that, you'll get an automated email saying you've submitted your port request. You should get a second email from our porting team, usually within the next business day. Basically, let you know a person actually looked at the documents. If we see anything immediately wrong or that would cause a rejection, we'll obviously let you know so we can get that corrected before we go through the submission process. Toll-free numbers take about 1 week to port, right? 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers can usually average about 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo, right? Someone like transposed a number on a zip code, for example. Or if there's alternate address information, right? If there's 2 different addresses, we try them both, right? But once we've made sure that we've exhausted everything that we could have possibly double checked on, then we let you know saying, hey, we're getting rejection for this reason. You need to contact your current carrier to find out what the proper information it is needed to port out. Right, voicemail boxes shows your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box with an entry here under the user column, right, was a voicemail box that was created when the user was created. You can always add new voicemail boxes up here at the top by clicking Add Voicemail Box, give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, give it a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. You can click on the wrench icon here to look at these settings, right? So you would need the voicemail box number and PIN number to check a voicemail box messages over the phone or to change its greeting over the phone. Under Advanced, you got Greeting Media. So you can upload files directly to voicemail box. You can also use the pull down here to select any media files that are already on the account, right? So if you have a generic message that you want everyone to have on the voicemail boxes, It's easy to just upload it and then select it from the pull down. Now, if you have something selected in temporary and media, the temporary file plays, not the media file, right? Only one plays, right? The media file won't play again until the temporary setting here is set back to none. And that's for your out of office or vacation message. Recipients, your voicemail boxes that are associated with a user have a built-in recipient. But for any voicemail box, you can come here and click where it says add new recipient and then add additional email address here, right? Keep clicking add until you're done and then save changes. And then options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients in place, you can click on already set up. So that way things don't get changed on you. And then you can verify that if you want delete after notification and the attached messages, right? So, and the reason you'd want delete after notification would be that you don't want this voicemail box to get full, right? So like this is my support voicemail box, probably be disconcerting for my customers to hear it get full, right? So in this way, I just delete them automatically and we still get the emails. Virtual text forward, this is a add-on feature. This allows you to have phone numbers be able to receive a text. They just don't send them back out. So up here at the top, you would click on add text forward, choose a number on your account, and then choose either an email address or a webhook that you want the messages sent to, right? Most people choose email because that's easy. Webhook is some level of programming and a feature you'd have to enable on the account, right? But other than that, enter the email address, click on create webhook. And now when someone sends an SMS message to one of these phone numbers, right? These email addresses get notified with the body, in the body of the email saying, here's the text message. Call logs, this shows your call history on the account. You see calls that have come in today, right? And I can download this as a CSV. I can see this week. I can also see this month. I can do custom, so I can choose to go back to the previous month, for instance, and then filter it. The green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. And let's scroll down here. So here you can see a call that had several legs. The first entry here, that's a call coming into the system. And then this is each additional attempt of a device. And there's obviously some sort of problem going on here. So that's something that would bear investigation. Yellow arrow to the left, that's called going out from the system. Little fire extinguisher icon, this will report the call, right? So it create an email for you already addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's gonna have the technical details, but you're gonna want to type in why exactly you're sending the call in. The custom field will let you go back up to 1 year of call logs. If you need to go back further, you need to reach out to our support team. We'd have to escalate that up to our engineers. They can go back up to 18 months, but after that, the data is not available. Feature codes. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to directly access dash features from their VoIP phones. I've referenced a couple of these, right? This is a page obviously here in your dashboard. It's also a page on the support pages. Also under the support pages, you can do a search for the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the context help in addition to the feature codes themselves. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up under the menu, we'll go here to blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your staff. Right, you would click edit blacklists and you would click on add to create your first list. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right, you need to give it a name and then you need to choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? right? Anonymous calls means calls coming in, it's not presenting caller ID, right? If you turn it on, that means they're not getting through, right? If you turn it or leave it off, which is the default, it comes through. But after that, you come down here and click on add number, put +1 area code and phone number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking add until you're done. And then once you're done, down here on the bottom right, you click on save. Then towards the top right, click on back to settings. And make sure your list is over here on the right under selected, right? So you might have to click and drag the list and then click update. Even if the list is already on the right, click update, right? To make sure that the changes you made are reflected. Now, any number that's on these lists, right, they'll reach the system, right? So they'll show up in your call log, but then they get busy tone, right? They're not going to actually reach through to devices on your account. Call recording, this can do one of two things. If you're using the built-in call recording, it will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which has, it wants you to log in, use your dash login, and then you'd use that page to look at your recordings, play them back, download them, etc. If you have AWS integration enabled, when you click on this, instead, it shows you your call recordings via AWS, where you can play them back or download them. You can also change the date range, etc. However, if you want to delete them, you'd actually have to log into your AWS account. Oops. Next up is monitor. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. It doesn't matter what device they're using. Right. So right now I have all, right, who's available and who's busy. Right. I can also specify by device in terms of all, available, and busy. Over here, right, the top one here is active inbound calls. They would each have their own box and show you who they're speaking to among your staff. Parked calls, if there's any parked calls, they would show their phone number and their parking spot number. Reports, this opens up a new tab, takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature. In the show notes, you want to look at the advanced reporting demo. This allows you to create your own custom reports. So if you're interested in that, you want to talk to our account services team. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box manager. As an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And here you can see their messages, right? You can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download them. You can play them back. Click on the box in front of it. As an admin, you can move a voicemail to a different voicemail box or just change its status, right? So in case a voicemail box gets full. Integration AWS, plan-specific feature, but basically this allows you to integrate with AWS. And it's these middle three pieces of information are what we would need to get from AWS in order to link it to your Dash account. Over here at top right, call center. This opens in a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. Uses your Dash login. This is call queues, right? So if you ever called your bank and you've been told please wait while your call will be handled by the next available agent, you enter the call queue. This is an add-on to additional features or to existing plans. So you'd want to talk to our account services team. In the show notes, you can check on the ACD Queues Pro demo to see what it's like. Queues are an advanced version of groups, right? So a call comes into a group and a staff member answers it. The next call doesn't get offered to that first user, right? It would just skip them completely and go to the next person. Also within queues, staff members can log themselves in and out of the queue and mark themselves away, which is not something they can do with a group. The other advantages of the queues is managers can eavesdrop in on a call or whisper or even barge in. . Dynamic caller ID, a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. Click edit here. So on this one, right, I gave it the name of Vegas. I chose a 702 number. And the rule is whenever my staff members dial a 702 area code phone number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to that 702 number I selected. The alternative is you can create your own feature codes, right? So in this case, if my staff members dial star 951, right, they enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 916 number. Faxes is your fax manager, so you can get to any fax box on the account. So here I'm on my outbound faxes. I can see the faxes that went out. I'm sorry, this is my inbound faxes, right? So I can see the faxes that have come into my system, right, the date, the time, phone numbers involved. I can download the file. The outbound fax tab shows you my outbound faxes. The failure here, if you mouse over failed, it tells you why. And in this case, it's saying the phone number was good, right? An active phone number, but we didn't get fax tones when we connected. So basically, when you see a failure here, that means we had a problem with the other phone number. The email to fax tab, this shows if you have entry here, that means the system had a problem processing the request. Right? So you see the email addresses involved, make sure those are in the proper format, but you click on the little eyeball icon here, and you see that error with no valid attachments, meaning there was no PDF or TIFF file. Could be they forgot to add the attachment, could be just the wrong type. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. It's programming. Right, you click on new webhook. This is how you would link Dash to other software. In the show notes, you can look at the introduction to Zapier webinar, which covers some webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. SMS registration. This is what you would need to go through to make use of texting. If you're interested in texting, you just signed up with us, you definitely want to talk to our account services team because they need to go over SMS registration with you. Also in the show notes is the business SMS webinar series, which you can go through. But once you've started this process, then our account services team can enable the virtual text feature on your account, which then you can enable it on your users. And then lastly, we have the user portal, right? Each user has access to their own user portal. It defaults them to their voicemail tab, right? So they can listen to the messages, download them, delete them. The call history tab, they can see their call history and they can change the date range to go further back in time. Fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box, but they would see their fax history. The contact list shows everything on your Dash account. It's not something your staff members can add to. Right, this just shows other users, groups, auto attendants, etc., i.e. for if they need to transfer. Conference tab, it only works for users that have the conference feature enabled. Over here on the right is where your users would update the moderator and participant PIN numbers. These should be different from each other. Then you have the option for your user to enable people when they enter a conference, are they muted or deafened? Or do they play entry and exit tones? While in our conference, they can come to this page. On the plus icon here, they can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock the conference up, mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference call. Also, each individual moderator and participant will have their own little box. This allows you to mute a specific person, for example, or even kick out a specific person. And then we have the settings and devices tab right here. Enable call forward. This is where your staff members would enable call forwarding on their own, right? Just put a check mark here, put +1 area code and number, and then save, right? So now I'm forwarding, right? I just uncheck this again and click save, and now I'm not forwarding. And that is everything. I'm not seeing any questions have come up, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.